Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, January 23rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game is in 221 days. The game against Michigan in 312 days. It has only been about 3 weeks since the end of the Cotton Bowl game down in Arlington, Texas. It was not one of the greatest moments in Ohio State history, certainly. The 14-3 loss to Missouri left people kind of wondering what the heck was going to happen in the future of the Ohio State football program. Could have gone a number of different directions. And boy, howdy, have they picked a direction in that last 3 weeks and some change since then. Today, we want to take just a look back at the last 3 weeks, and this is just literally going to be a timeline of events since the end of that Cotton Bowl. Some of the major stories that we've been covering here on the show, because I think as we go through this, you're going to say, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And there is just a lot of interesting stuff here. We're going to be breaking this down just week by week. We're going to be doing it with our buddy Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, I'm just going to run through this first week very quickly, and just you can share your thoughts. They lose on the 29th, the night of the 29th. We wake up in Dallas on the morning of the 30th, ready to head home, and on that day, defensive lineman Mike Hall announces he is going to the NFL, and it's like, oh boy, here we go. Is this the first domino to fall? December 31st, Ohio University tight end Will Kazmarek announced he's kind of transferred to Ohio State. December 31st, more guys head out. Jesse Mirko, Noah Rogers, Bryson Rogers, all enter the transfer portal. January 2nd, after Michigan wins the Rose Bowl, putting Ohio State fans in an even better mood, January 2nd, Steel Chambers announces that he is leaving. This feels like that was kind of like the nadir of things, I think, for Ohio State fans overall. Then on January 3rd, this is when things sort of start to turn. Tyleik Williams announces he is coming back. January 4th, Will Howard announces he is coming to Ohio State. January 5th, Lathan Ransom announces he's coming back for one more year. January 5th, also, Jack Sawyer announces he's coming back. January 6th, Seth McLaughlin, the Alabama center, announces he is coming to Ohio State. And then finally on January 6th, five-star corner Devin Sanchez for the class of 2025 commits. Tony, it feels like that's about a month and a half of news, and that was just over a week immediately following that Cotton Bowl.
And honestly, I feel like this is going to be the slowest week that we talk about, or the least aggressive week. Boy, yeah, I mean, I had to jot it down, Tom, so that I could keep track of all of this, because there are so many things. The Devin Sanchez thing is normally that would be good for a week. You know, that's the biggest thing that's happened in a week. You land the number one corner in a particular class. And that week it was big at the time, but boy, oh boy. You got the transfers, you got guys leaving. You got the entire like buffet. You got just bits and pieces of each thing. Oh, you got a transfer here. Oh, you got a five-star corner signing here. You got this guy coming in. You got somebody leaving for the NFL. And this was just the start of what has been a very, very busy month. But is one of the maybe the unremembered, the forgotten aspects of this is the Jesse Mirko leaving. I think that is still, Tom, if the biggest issue with this Ohio State team in 2024 is the punter, would that be the biggest slap in the face to Jim Tressel in university history?
Boy, yeah, that would be spiritually first for Brian Ferentz to be leaving the conference, and then now this. I mean, add all the West Coast teams you want. You want to talk about the Big Ten getting away from what made the Big Ten the Big Ten? I don't know. That's a little dangerous. The only thing that maybe saves the day a little bit is they do still have another Australian punter on the roster. Joe McGuire is on the roster. So they have not completely abandoned their Australian roots there in the punting game. But yeah, just one of these many things that I think if you ask people to try and put together, like, here's all the different pieces of news, that feels like that's one that probably gets lost in the wash. But it was just a couple days after the Cotton Bowl, and it was just like, oh boy, if he's leaving, like, what else is going to happen? And then everything just kind of swung a couple days later. So, all right, here's the next week. January 8th, they announced that Perry Eliano is out. January 8th, Ty Hamilton announces he's coming back. January 8th, Quinshon Judkins announces he is transferring to Ohio State from Ole Miss. January 10th, four-star defensive end Zahir Mathis commits for the class of 2025. January 10th. January 10th was one of probably the single biggest day. Matt Guerrieri is in. Parker Fleming is out on the coaching staff. January 10th, Denzel Burke is coming back. January 10th, Donovan Jackson is coming back. January 10th, Jordan Hancock is coming back. January 11th, Emeka Ibuka is coming back. January 11th, Marvin Harrison is leaving. January 12th, JT Tuimoloau is coming back. January 12th, Travion Henderson is back. That's the end of the NFL returns. January 13th, Bryson Rodgers announces he's pulling his name out of the portal and then coming back to Ohio State. But you just go through that week, and Perry Aliano is leaving, Parker Fleming is leaving, and Marvin Harrison is leaving. Everything else is someone's coming in, and I just said a whole lot of names. I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 names coming back or committing. I mean, that is an incredible week of news and pretty much all positive.
Yes, Tom. January 10th was an incredible week of news. That day alone, with Zahir Mathis committing, Matt Guerrieri in, Parker Fleming out, Denzel Burke, Donovan Jackson, Jordan Hancock all returning. It reminds me of the meme of the Popeyes chicken worker just sitting out back of the restaurant, just exhausted and just, hunched over like, this has been a day. That was the entire Ohio State beat that day. But also that's kind of the way things have been. Again, this week, that week give you everything. Coaching movement. And then the first time ever, it gave us Brian Hartline going into the transfer portal for a wide receiver, his own, Bryson Rodgers. But this was the real, I think the Tyleik Williams returning was the hint. This week was the confirmation that the juniors had, just as they said, there were some conversations after the Michigan game saying, hey, we're all opting in. And when they did opt into the Cotton Bowl, that was a sign that it looks like things are trending towards most of these guys coming back. And then when you get the announcements that you did with Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock and Donovan Jackson and JT Tuimoloau and Travion Henderson, like that was one of the biggest weeks in Ohio State history, off the field for sure, but could end up being one of the biggest weeks in Ohio State history, regardless of on field or off the field.
Yeah, I was thinking about this just in terms of the upcoming season and just sort of the narrative of the year already sort of starting to take shape. And, if they end up, and there's a long way to go between now and then, but if they end up, if they finish their year standing on a podium with a bunch of confetti following them around them and getting handed the national championship trophy, it feels like the preface of the book, of the book about that story or the story of the season is, boy, coming off the field at the Cotton Bowl and how dejected everyone looked. And, the conversations about, boy, is the culture of the program about to fall apart and all that kind of stuff. And then chapter 1 is, so the first week and a half of January, let me tell you about January 10th. Like that feels like that's sort of a big part of what this coming year could be about, because that, you think back to that 2002 national championship season, you think about that kind of started with Mike Doss announcing he was coming back during a press conference in early January. It felt kind of like you were having that sort of momentum building during that second week. All right, now this is just last week, so you probably are actually going to remember at least most of these things. Some of these feel like they were well over a week ago, maybe well over a month ago. January 16th, Ross Bjork is going to be the Ohio State athletic director. January 17th, they actually hold a press conference to announce him. January 19th, Bill O'Brien is in as the new offensive coordinator. Corey Dennis is going to have some sort of a change of role, but that's, the exact role that and where he ends up is a little bit up in the air. He hasn't been let go. It's just sort of, we don't know yet. Also, January 19th, in addition to hiring an offensive coordinator, oh, by the way, Caleb Downs is coming to Ohio State. January 20th, Dominic Kirks, who a month earlier, everyone was wondering, why have they not recruited this guy? Why have they not offered this guy? What is going on? How could they possibly miss on this? Boy, this is a symbol of all the stuff that is kind of screwy right now. He commits. He is committed to Ohio State on January 20th. And then January 21st, oh, by the way, they added the number one quarterback by many analysts in the class of 2024, a second five-star quarterback for the class of 2024, Julian Sayin, joining Aaron Noland in the Buckeyes class of 2024 after enrolling in Alabama, staying about 48 hours in Alabama, and then Nick Saban leaving and hitting the transfer portal and then transferring to Ohio State on Sunday. I mean, I guess they only added 2 5-stars stolen directly from Alabama, and an offensive coordinator, and a 4-star defensive end, and an athletic director. I mean, is this the most boring week of the year so far?
Yeah, finally we get to slow down and just take it easy for a while. It is interesting how much of this past week has been associated with Alabama directly, indirectly. Even Dominic Kirk's decommitting from Washington because their head coach leaves and heads to Alabama to take over there. But again, in any week, this would be, each of these items would be the thing. Ross Bjork, new AD. I mean, when Gene Smith announced that he was retiring back in June or whatever, whenever it did, like, we had an emergency podcast because that's huge news at Ohio State. Anytime there's an AD leaving or going or coming, there's a lot to do. And we were all there for the press conference. The president of the university was there, Ted Carter, as well. And this all just flies by, Tom. It is crazy how things have gone this week. And then, the Bill O'Brien thing, new offensive coordinator, new quarterbacks coach, like that. It doesn't get much bigger than that when Ryan Day is hiring a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterbacks coach, because that's him. That's his baby. And now he's bringing in somebody to take care of his baby. So that is huge news in and of itself. And of course, it's Bill O'Brien, who has done it at Penn State, did a great job saving that program from really deep depths of despair, and goes to Houston, has success there, gets fired after a poor start in 2020, goes to Alabama. His quarterback wins a Heisman, has done it all, and now is going to see how they mesh with Ryan Day, and that creates all kinds of questions. You and Ross Fulton have been talking about that. And then Tom, and let's get to the middle part of the week. The one thing missing from this defense, you're like, boy, if there's just one player nationally that you could go get for this defense, who would it be? Caleb Downs. And he had already been in the portal. Seemed like it was going to be Georgia. Everybody was pointing at Georgia. And then boom, it's Ohio State. And that would be good enough for a month in terms of the biggest news for a month of the month. And it's just one of the many things that has happened. Dominic Kirk, hey, you get an in-state defensive line and you need one. That is so under the radar, because the next day you get a second 5-star quarterback in your class. Now, it doesn't count as the recruiting class because he was enrolled at Alabama, so it's another transfer. But now you've got 2 of the top 4 quarterbacks according to the 24/7 composite from the 2024 class. That's a pretty good starting point. And to this point, Aaron Nolan has been okay with it. He's saying all of the right things, just as you would hope a quarterback would. And this is it's not the quantity this week, but the quality has been mwah.
Yeah, it is one of the biggest weeks in terms of star power and, roles, significant roles that are being added to the program and the athletic department on the whole. Didn't mention, on January 21st, also the women's basketball team beat Iowa in overtime. The weekend before that, the number 1 women's hockey team swept the number 2, number 2 Minnesota Golden Gophers by a combined 13-1. I mean, it's been quite a month in Columbus. And what I was trying to remember, do a little back of the napkin math real quickly on how many 5-stars they have acquired or attained or retained this month. And I can't remember the biggest. I think maybe there was one Urban Meyer recruiting class at Florida that had 8 5-stars maybe. Just this month, according to my back of the napkin math, Ohio State has acquired or retained 7 5-stars in the last, the last 17 days, because it starts January 5th with Jack Sawyer, January 10th with Donovan Jackson, January 11th with Emeka Ibuka, January 12th with JT Tuimoloau, January 12th with Travion Henderson, January 19th with Caleb Downs, January 21st with Julian Sayin. And those are just the guys who were 5-star recruits out of high school. I think you could make a pretty good argument that Denzel Burke would certainly merit 5-star rating now. Some of those other guys perhaps as well, but it has been a 35-star January if you want to do it that way, and that's just the 5 stars, not let alone all the high 4-star recruits that were in that list as well. So, Tony, I know there's more recruiting decisions potentially coming at some point soon. What is the next thing that January will bring? Go ahead, spoil the surprise for everyone. What else are we expecting next? What could January possibly have in store for us next?
That's a good question, because even when we were talking about all of the things that have been going on, like you and I are texting, I'm like, well, now that saying is in, things will slow down for a little bit. And you're like, well, but about this and then this, and then don't forget about this. And it's like, what? When does Tony get a break? When does Tom get a break? What about us? Why nobody's thinking about us? Nobody's caring about us. I guess maybe we can rest in May or June, because it's not going to be January. February is we got second signing day. We're only a month away from spring ball, and it's usually there's like a little. I can't even say usually anymore. There are no lulls anymore after the bowl game. After the season is over, all heck is still breaking loose and falling into place. And so, what happens next? I think the portal is, well, I would say maybe the portal is done for now until the spring. But, the coaching carousel continues. I'm going to say there's some recruiting guys that are going to, some commitments coming up here at some point. And still coaching decisions need to be made. There is still that in terms of what is Ohio State going to do with their 10th assistant coaching position. So that will be happening. And we'll be talking to coaches and players here eventually. So, yeah, Tom, nothing is slowing down. This train keeps rolling.
Yeah, you mentioned all that different news, and I will also point out sometimes things that make news in Ann Arbor also make news in Columbus. We'll see. There might be some news on that front coming as well. At some point, there will be an off season, probably, maybe. We'll see. But until then, boy, is BuckeyeHuddle.com a great place to be to experience all of the news, all of the insight, and all of the analysis. We have had quite a bit of breaking news coverage, quite a number of breaking news podcasts, live shows, all that kind of good stuff. Plus a ton of great content on our Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. It is a member-exclusive feature at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And boy, is there a lot to talk about right now on that Huddle board. So this would be a great time for you to check it out. Give it a try for a month, see if you like it. There's been plenty of good news there. I think you would probably have enjoyed your membership quite a bit so far this month of January. Don't worry, there's still a little bit of time. You can sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com, get access to our great team of insiders, our great community, all the insight, all the analysis, and much, much more. Also, make sure you check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Lots of breaking news podcasts, lots of analysis. As soon as the Julian Sayin news broke over the weekend, Kevin and Mark had a great piece, a great sort of breakdown piece with some highlights and all that kind of good stuff. You can find that at the YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of that good stuff, well, make sure you're subscribed there. Make sure you hit that bell to get notified when we drop new videos. That way you'll never miss a thing. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.